Summary of Becoming FDR, The Personal Crisis That Made a President, by Jonathan Darma, written and narrated by JANKY Mind. Introduction. Becoming FDR unfolds the extraordinary narrative of a personal health crisis and subsequent recovery that not only reshaped Franklin D. Roosevelt from a self-indulgent, privileged youth into a mature, compassionate president, but also positioned him to guide a nation through the tumultuous eras of the Great Depression and World War II. When you inquire with any American versed in history, they might recount Roosevelt's renowned social programs, like the New Deal or his soothing fireside chats that provided solace to a nation grappling with the challenges of the Great Depression and World War II. However, the iconic moments that define Franklin D. Roosevelt, such as the New Deal and the fireside chats, bear little resemblance to the golden boy born into affluence in upstate New York in 1882. This Roosevelt, born into familial wealth and a renowned name, appeared destined for a political career. The leader who navigated the nation through its darkest days differed significantly from the young, energetic athlete and political appointee who, by his own admission, only thought about himself. This was evident in the very public affair he engaged in while his wife was spending the summer with their children off the coast of Maine. More than any other political figure, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's life can be partitioned into a before and after. His before encapsulates the life of a tall, handsome, and graceful young politician, while the after portrays a survivor of a debilitating illness, grappling with physical challenges and daily adversities. Despite enduring public scrutiny over his disabilities, he exhibited public strength and resolve. Throughout this transformative journey, Roosevelt acquired invaluable skills crucial for his daunting presidency. In the face of the 1930s global economic crisis and the 1940s World War, his ability to empathize with and inspire others became defining strengths, qualities that his younger self would hardly recognize. Chapter 1. The Turning Point. In the quietude of an August morning in 1921, Franklin Delano Roosevelt awoke to the grip of a relentless fever. Only one day into a much-anticipated family vacation, the man known for his boundless energy and relentless drive had succumbed to an unrelenting malaise. The previous evening, his wife Eleanor had sensed something amiss as he retired early, citing fatigue and chills. By morning, her concerns were validated. Attempting to rise from his bed, Franklin found his legs unwilling to bear his weight. Collapsing back onto the bed, he became ensnared in a disorienting cycle of fever-induced hallucinations and fitful sleep. With only Eleanor and his dedicated political strategist, Lewis Howe, assuming the roles of caregivers, what was meant to be a family retreat swiftly transformed into a grueling test of endurance. The typically public-facing Roosevelt family closed ranks, attending to Franklin's needs with unwavering dedication. He could not even perform basic tasks without assistance. Situated in a remote location that had long served as a summer haven for the Roosevelt family, obtaining medical assistance presented a considerable challenge. The doctor they eventually summoned from the mainland at Lubbock, Maine, was a familiar figure to the Roosevelts. Regrettably, his diagnosis proved to be a grave error, as he attributed Franklin's condition to paralysis caused by a blood clot and extreme exhaustion from overwork. Had the physician been aware of the polio outbreaks in the vicinity of New York, he might have considered an alternate diagnosis. Tragically, the accurate diagnosis offered little solace compared to the initial misjudgment. Unlike the prospect of rehabilitating muscles and nerves damaged by a clot, paralysis resulting from a polio infection, also known as infantile paralysis, presented a starkly different reality. In severe cases, the virus could bypass the body's defenses, wreaking havoc on multiple systems, mercilessly destroying muscles, nerves, and even organs. In such instances, the hope of regaining functionality dwindled. For a man whose political ascent had been propelled by his commanding stature, amiable demeanor, and physical prowess showcased at Democratic national conventions, this diagnosis proved devastating. The once golden boy, accustomed to a life of privilege and admiration for his grace and athleticism, now faced the stark reality that his days as a superficial political aspirant were conclusively over. The era of struggle, determination, and a relentless optimism bordering on self-delusion had commenced. Upon the intervention of external medical experts and the subsequent accurate diagnosis, one undeniable truth emerged. The lack of early intervention and appropriate treatment during the initial stages of his polio infection had dealt a severe blow to Franklin's chances of recovery. Now rendered incapable of controlling his movements below the waist, he confronted an uncertain and challenging path towards reclaiming his health. Chapter 2. A different dimension of the Roosevelts. As Eleanor assumed the role of Franklin's primary caretaker, it marked a pivotal juncture in their relationship, following over a decade of a tumultuous partnership and the birth of 5 children. On the surface, they appeared to be the ideal couple. Eleanor, tall, strikingly attractive, highly intelligent, and connected to the immediate circle of former President Teddy Roosevelt, her uncle. On the other hand, Franklin, a distant 5th cousin once removed, had often leveraged his presidential lineage for influence during his boarding school days, while Teddy was still in the White House. Despite the seemingly harmonious match on paper, the backgrounds of Eleanor and Franklin unveiled 2 markedly distinct childhoods within their similarly affluent and prestigious families. Franklin basked in the adoration of his mother, whose love and praise were so profound that even his father's early demise couldn't shake his deeply ingrained belief in his own uniqueness. In stark contrast, Eleanor, raised by neglectful and alcoholic parents, experienced a childhood marked by a scarcity of affection and attention. While Franklin was immersed in maternal love, Eleanor grew up yearning for the warmth of connection. When Franklin embarked on frequent political travels and engaged in a highly publicized affair with her social secretary, Eleanor was profoundly affected by the betrayal and abandonment. Often overshadowed by her overbearing mother-in-law in her family's affairs, she had initiated the process of separation, striving to construct a life independent of her husband. Thus, when Franklin was struck down in that fateful August, it was perhaps the most challenging moment for both of them. Eleanor was aiming for independence and personal fulfillment outside the confines of marriage, while Franklin was resolutely focused on ascending to the governor's office in his home state of New York and, eventually, the White House. Instead, both of their trajectories took an unexpected turn. Franklin found himself compelled to slow down, heal, and embark on a journey of recovery. Meanwhile, Eleanor assumed the role of caregiver for a household teeming with children and a husband incapacitated by illness. For weeks, she sacrificed her own comfort, sleeping in an armchair at Franklin's bedside, and shielding him from probing reporters and concerned friends. Despite being on the verge of collapse, the Roosevelt family rallied together. Franklin and Eleanor initiated a campaign of positivity and optimism regarding Franklin's recovery. Despite medical counsel, he fixated on the goal of walking again, believing that his presidential aspirations hinged on presenting a fit, strong, and healthy image to the public. In an ironic twist, it was Eleanor, the more discreet and reserved Roosevelt of the duo, who stepped boldly into the public spotlight, ensuring their family remained actively engaged in politics. Chapter 3. Navigating Uncharted Waters. Even upon his return to New York from Campobello, Franklin's journey to recovery was merely in its nascent stages. Despite his youth, his health had already been compromised when he contracted the polio virus in late July of 1921. The toll of several prior illnesses, including the severe bout of influenza during the 1918 pandemic, had finally caught up with him. To embark on the path to healing, Franklin committed himself to an extended period away from the public eye. Securing a barge affectionately dubbed LaRuco, capable of navigating the warm winter waterways around Florida, Franklin found solace in its ability to facilitate swimming and sunbathing. These discreet sojourns far from the bustling streets of New York remained intentionally absent from the media's scrutiny. During this period, Eleanor had already terminated the intimate aspect of their relationship following the birth of their 5th child. She cultivated passionate connections with other highly educated women, forming a network of progressives who were both politically and socially engaged. Immersed in activities such as volunteering at settlement houses in Lower Manhattan's tenements and teaching in schools for the children of impoverished laborers, this group sought public solutions to societal challenges. Aligned with Eleanor's astute political acumen, this network provided her with an invaluable education, preparing her to step into the public sphere and address pressing political issues. The timing proved fortuitous. With the eventual passage of the 18th Amendment granting women's suffrage, Democratic women were ascending to power in the early decades of the 20th century. Eleanor's eloquence, poise, and political analysis positioned her as a key influencer in shaping public perceptions of women and the Democratic Party. While Franklin sought refuge in the sunshine and waters of the South, Eleanor was called upon to lead the National Women's Committee of the Democratic Party. By the summer of 1928, she had earned recognition as one of the most influential women in American politics. Eleanor became a shrewd manipulator of women's journalism, leveraging it to serve her political objectives. Recognizing the importance of responding to mundane questions about her personal life and appearance, she strategically used these inquiries to seg into discussions about women's political affairs, often delivering incisive critiques. Her involvement in volunteer work expanded her political awareness beyond the confines of her privileged class, and her adept manipulation of the press established her as a powerful ally and savvy political advisor upon her husband's return to the political arena. Chapter 4. A Transformative Bargain. At a juncture when Eleanor was emerging as a formidable political force, and Franklin was engrossed in his rehabilitation endeavors in the southern climes, the lives of the Roosevelts underwent another seismic shift. Political maneuvers in both New York and Washington, D.C. positioned Franklin, with his anti-establishment Democratic credentials, as the ideal candidate to spearhead the campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1924 on behalf of longtime New York Governor L. Smith. Despite the prospect of re-entering the political arena, even participating in a political convention from the vantage point of a wheelchair, Franklin embraced the role. He understood that, in essence, he was assuming a figurehead position, while Al Smith's political allies executed the substantive campaigning. However, Franklin discerned an opportunity. The hot-button issue of prohibition continued to cleave through national campaigns. As the Democratic Convention unfolded in June at Madison Square Garden, over clashes between Al Smith's anti-prohibition faction and the prohibition-supporting candidate William McAdoo played out on the convention floor. McAdoo, while somewhat popular in New York for his stance on prohibition, faced deep-seated resentment for his failure to denounce the Ku Klux Klan, which had a noticeable presence at the convention. Though Franklin's disability remained a focal point in the public eye, this political imbroglio brought him back to the core of U.S. politics precisely when he could leverage it for his own ambitions. Incapable of ascending the convention speaker's stand unaided, he had to be lifted onto the platform by robust individuals while seated in his wheelchair. In the midst of the fervent hall, a hushed stillness enveloped the space as delegates turned their attention to witness the spectacle of Franklin being elevated to the stage. By 1924, radio had become a fixture in every American home, and this convention was broadcasted. Those tuning in from home experienced the sound of a boisterous crowd abruptly falling silent. This silence was shattered by the announcement of Franklin Roosevelt's name as the next speaker, followed by a resounding and prolonged ovation. To radio audiences nationwide, Franklin Roosevelt, a figure with limited national recognition, seemed like the most captivating and popular presence in town. What remained concealed from their view was the silent witness to his assisted ascent. The hush continued as he meticulously executed the choreography of raising himself with the aid of his son and gradually making his way to the podium using canes. Once there, he grasped iron bars affixed to steady him on the specially constructed platform. Prior to greeting the audience with a warm smile, he casually set aside the canes to stand upright. His mere arrival on the stage epitomized determination and fortitude. Franklin ensured that this visual spectacle was accompanied by inspirational words, firmly establishing himself as the star of the convention. Chapter 5. A Journey of Transformation. Harboring aspirations to emulate the political trajectory of his illustrious namesake, Teddy Roosevelt, the events of the 1924 convention catapulted Franklin into the realm of national politics much earlier than he had initially planned. While the sun and swimming had contributed to shedding weight, revitalizing his fatigued body, and cultivating psychological resilience, the ability to walk remained elusive. In a twist of fate, this period marked the inception of a sturdy foundation for a distinctive style of leadership for Franklin, one that entailed seeking improved treatments for his disability and harnessing the emerging medium of radio. This approach would shape not only his subsequent election as governor of New York, but also his eventual presidency, characterized by compassion for those facing similar challenges and profound empathy for individuals confronting adversity. Observers at political rallies often noticed Franklin whispering words of encouragement to disabled attendees, reflecting his genuine concern for their well-being. In the midst of the 1920s, when he discovered a spa in Warm Springs, Georgia, using swimming and sunbathing as treatments for his paralysis, his enthusiasm was so palpable that it ignited a mission to develop enhanced treatments accessible to all in need. Even in the late 1920s, when communities had endured the ravages of polio for decades, viable treatments for survivors to regain functionality were scarce. Recognizing that a sense of purpose enlivened individuals, Franklin's innovative rehabilitation approach began to shape medical perspectives. Convinced that the treatments benefiting him held promise for all long-term sufferers, he went so far as to purchase the dilapidated spa in Warm Springs when it became available, transforming it into a cutting-edge medical facility. His visionary concept of spaces where patients could socialize, navigate public areas, and rehabilitate socially was groundbreaking for its time. Becoming popular in Georgia not only garnered powerful allies in the Democratic South, but also established Franklin as a figure of trust across diverse geographic regions. His endeavors in Warm Springs contributed to national recognition as an empathetic entrepreneur, a reputation that would prove instrumental in the success of his eventual presidential campaign. Summary. Born into a life of privilege and affluence, Franklin Delano Roosevelt enjoyed a smooth journey of wealth and ease. However, this idyllic existence was abruptly disrupted by a health crisis at the age of 39, thrusting him into a tumultuous transformation that would not only shape his character, but also define his entire career. The adversity he faced cultivated empathy for others and deepened his appreciation for his wife, Eleanor, who, in her own right, blossomed as a political and social entrepreneur. The Roosevelts forged a close, albeit non-romantic, partnership that extended to include other enduring and supportive allies. The resilience, determination, and empathy Franklin honed during his struggle against illness emerged as guiding strengths, instrumental in steering the nation through challenging times during his presidency. This audiobook summary was brought to you by JANKY Mind. We hope you enjoyed it.